Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and this is part of the Garibay RPG series. And we're talking about D&D next, specifically the Dungeons & Dragons Player Handbook. And what I want to talk about right now is I believe this is the most important book that's being published today. It's being worked on. And one of the reasons why is it teaches us about managing talent. So Dungeons & Wizards of the Coast decided they're going to do a 5th edition of the Dungeons & Dragons game. It's an incredibly successful game. It's been around for close to 40 years. And so basically they gathered their team and they went back to 3.5. D&D 4.0 was disastrous. It completely split the people who play Dungeons & Dragons right down the middle. D&D 3.5 was incredibly innovative, changed the market. Tons of other companies joined Wizards of the Coast in creating Dungeons & Dragons content. It had this open license theory, and it was incredibly innovative. It was incredibly popular. It was incredibly successful. 4.0 was a disaster. So basically, when they went to build their team for 3.5, they went and they got a guy, Monte, incredibly talented role-playing game writer. And they brought him on to the Dungeons & Dragons Next team, and he was working with the team, and after a couple months, everything went south, and he said, hey, I'm leaving the D&D Next team. And so he did. He was very quiet about why he left. It's one of the most fascinating stories out there. Nobody's really talking right now. But when D&D Players Next comes out, when the PHB succeeds or fails, we're going to know that story. Somebody's going to talk about it, and I think it's really going to be fascinating when we find out what really happened. But this is an incredibly important part, is the Dungeons & Dragons Next Player's Handbook shows about how companies manage talent. So they did not manage Monte Cook well. He decided to leave. He left in the middle of the largest role-playing game creation process, D&D Next 5.0, that's ever been mounted by any role-playing game company in the world in the history of man. And so he left in the middle of it. He went to Kickstarter, and he built a game called Numenera, and he got $500,000, unprecedented number, to build a role-playing game, right? Then, this is incredible. So he completely succeeds at his Kickstarter, builds Numenera, and it's a beautiful role-playing game. It's stunning. It's a piece of art. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. But guess what he failed on? He failed on distribution. The book actually hit shelves before it reached many of his backers. This is unthinkable. These people backed him, gave him cold hard cash to build his game, and then they saw those books show up on their local game store shelves. Not only did they not have their book, they couldn't buy their book because they put out $60 for a hardback book that they already paid $60, $120, maybe $200, depending on how much they put down on the Kickstarter, depending on what levels they were at. And so there were people picking up their books, and the people who backed it, who gave him the money to do it, who could not buy their books. What's amazing for this is he failed on distribution. Guess who does distribution well? Wizards of the Coast, the company he left. How ironic. Now, actually, I don't think he made I don't know if he made a mistake or not. But but we're going to find out. If D&D Next 5.0, D&D Next, D&D 5.0, they're synonymous, succeeds, then Monte Cook could be left in dust, and he could have been, it could have been something that was rebuilt that it could have been part of that he wasn't. If it fails, the entire D&D community can say to Monte Cook, you were there. You could have fixed it. You could have helped us keep the game that we all care about. You could have, made it matter, right? So, there's a lot on the line for Monte Cook. There's a lot on the line for Kickstarter. There's a lot on the line for Everybody Loves D&D. And if you're any company in America and you want to see what it means to handle talent well, what their options are, how do you deal with a superstar on your team, be looking at the D&D Player's Handbook. The creation of the D&D Player's Handbook, most important book being written today, this is high drama. There's so much at stake for this book. Thanks for listening to this video. Take care.